Okay, guys, chapter 1, God Moonlights as a Stand-Up Comedian, my kids. I can't promise that this is going to be pretty. It may get kind of messy, this whole thing. And I hope you enjoy. I'm going to touch on how I mentioned the kids in the introduction. Crap. These words are not easy. Words are not easy. Okay, so here we go. The very first thing I want to talk about is exactly what a stand-up comedian does. So a stand-up comedian is somebody who stands up in front of a live audience. So what are we right now here on The Daily is a live audience, right? Yes. Okay, so that part is it. And it's like stand-up comedians use their real life situations, whether it's from their own life, things they've heard from, stories from their friends, things like that, and they turn them into comical situations. So now, by no means do I mean that that we're just his little playthings and is making us into this sad, funny story, but not everything that's funny is haha, I'm gonna laugh at you and make fun of you kind of funny, but a lot of irony and holy shit, I didn't know that was gonna happen, can you believe this kind of stuff. So I hope that all makes sense to you. Also, another thing is that I don't believe in coincidences. I know a lot of people think stars align and planets align, and if that's your jam, that's your jam, not my jam. Whatever. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that everything happens for a reason, and no, I do not wish to explain. I cannot explain, and nor do I wish to. So I really believe that if something is happening in your life, it's happening for a reason, and to really take a look at what that reason might be. So this very first chapter that I want to talk on is going to be what I mentioned in the introduction, is my kids. So I'm looking down, and if you can see or hear or whatever the difference in, where my voice might be, that's because I am reading from a set of notes that I took to talk, so I don't leave anything out. So my husband, Josh, is prior military. He was in the Navy for 10.5 years. We've been together for 11 years, just over 11 years now. And so, his whole military time, our whole life together was all that. He got out about 1.5 years ago, and this is the most time that we've actually spent together in the last, 11 years that we've been together. So a lot of it was his, being out to sea for weeks and months at a time, or there were days where he would work for 36-hour stretches, and it just wasn't really home a lot because of his job. And so I did a lot of single parenting, which I was not a single parent in the traditional sense, but, I was raising the kids on my own for a while, and so that's why I say that. So we had 2 hyper as shit babies, okay, Irish twins, if you will. Ethan and Maddie are very close in age, less than 2 years apart. Ethan is 10. Ethan turned 10 in February, and Maddie will be 9 in September. So they were both babies in diapers, and our oldest is only 3 years older than Ethan. She's 13, and 4 years older than Maddie, almost 5. So she was just a very talented instigator. She caused a lot of trouble. She's very bossy, she knows what she wants. She's very willful kind of child. So, and especially with the baby, it was just, her mental capacity at that point, and then theirs. She was old enough to be well, I want to do this because I want to do it, but not old enough to realize that she couldn't like force other people to do what she wanted. I don't know. Does that all make sense? Like, she was older, but she wasn't mentally developed enough to be able to be like, oh, well, okay, let's do what you want to do, and then we'll do what I want to do. So she'd get pissed and do whatever, cause trouble. I was always at the end of my rope. I was always lonely with Josh being away and then being so far away from my family. Being military, we moved around a lot, and so we were always hours and hours away from anybody. I had friends and stuff, but it's just not always the same. But in the military, you make friends that are like family, and I had that. At least I had that with one person and not with anybody else. I suffer from anxiety and depression, and it's something that still affects me today, not just 10 years ago. But I just have a better visibility of it now, so I feel like while it still affects me, I handle it differently. That can be just like a whole nother thing in and of itself. But I was also always yelling. I was a very loud person. I'd get mad super quick and super easy. So during those times, years and years ago, I was always praying for peace and praying for patience. Because I needed the peace and I needed the patience, because after the kids getting in trouble for being kids, I would always feel really guilty, and I was a scary mommy. I was a lazy mommy, and I was a sad mommy, and I knew that something had to change. So I'd always, whenever I would pray, I'd pray to just feel normal, I'd pray to feel happy. I'd pray to not feel sick all the time. So with the depression, the anxiety, and the stress takes a very physical toll on my body. And so, like, I promote self-care all the time now, because even today, stress just affects my body physically in a tremendous way. So I always asked to feel normal. And then on those good days that I did have, I was praising God, thanking Him and just feeling really grateful for having a good day. But my kids were still loud, and they were still messy, and they were still needy and being bold, and they were, argumentative and all of that. So I would just get really discouraged. God, why aren't you changing my kids? And I was always reacting. I was never, like, diffusing situations. I'd walk, just like this loud, terrifying person. And so I'd pray, but I was praying and praying and praying. And God he started knocking on my heart louder and louder. So He would set, like, these little and sometimes big convictions in my heart for the way I was reacting to my kids with my anger and my words and my extreme irritability. And once I started recognizing what I was doing, and once I started seeing these things bubbling to the surface, like, before they, like, exploded, once I was able to recognize the way that I felt before things got out of hand, I was able to let them go and better care for, to love, to listen to, and to help my kids. So God kept them as their trouble log selves. If you don't know what a trouble log is, refer to the intro video, and we'll go from there. But he kept them the same, but taught me how to handle myself. Like, that's big. That's huge. So he didn't change their behavior. He changed my behavior, and my behavior changed their behavior. So I was better able to teach them and create these, more empathetic and compassionate and kind human beings and listeners, good listeners. It just made me a better mom. Made me a happy mom, a funny mom, a fun mom, the kind of mom, I wanted to be. And I absolutely love Him for it. and I love my kids for it. You know, and if he had only changed them, then I would still be that same awful, angry person that I was several years ago. And I feel like I'm a very different person because of it. You know, I can now better deal with not just the kids, but other situations that I can get myself into, because now I have the awareness of self, I have the patience, and I can be at peace with myself when things don't go my way. So that is it. That is a conclusion of chapter 1 of God Moonlights as a Stand-Up Comedian.